Hi, and welcome to another episode of Coloring with Connor. In this episode, we are going to color in Blastoise from a coloring book. I'm going to go through step by step. I actually just finished this, but we're going to go ahead and rewind and play from the very start. And I'm going to show you how I colored in everything to get this final look. I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to be coloring in Blastoise from Pokemon. What I've done so far is I've actually selected my palette. So I know all the colors that I'm going to use. These are mostly grayscale colors. I made a small edit here, not going to use this brown because I don't like it. And then for these blues, these skin colors, I'm probably going to end up using the grayish colors, but I might keep these ones out just in case I want tints of some real blue. Now, this is a tutorial. I'll be walking you step by step through how I do this. So a key thing that we're going to talk a lot about is blending ink and having wet ink on the paper. So one of the reasons why I really like to pick out my colors before is because I have a box of like 400 or 500 different markers, and it can take time to find the right marker. And if you're looking for that marker while you have wet ink, the ink's going to start drying. So we want to have the markers out and ready to go. So I'm going to start off, I generally like to start off with the background, but I'm actually not going to do a background for this one quite yet. If I do a background, I'm going to come back later and finish it. But I'm going to start with the shell, with the white part of the shell. Now I've got a reference photo up over here, which is going to help me out. So when I do this, I'm going to use these grays right here. I'm always going to start with the lightest color, pretty much no matter what. And the goal right now with this is just to get, well, first off, I want to put down the color so I know exactly where it's going to go. And then also, because I don't want to accidentally start coloring in this one right here when I mean to be doing this one. But the second reason why we're putting down this lightest color first is we're just getting the paper wet. And we really want to have that paper wet for blending purposes later. It just makes life a lot easier when everything is wet. So I'm not really sure how long it takes for these alcohol markers to dry. Probably a few minutes per one layer. I'm kind of going back and forth over this, so this might be a layer and a half, maybe 2 layers. And I'm just lightly going over it, just getting the process started. I'm not like smudging it all in one area and then ignoring another area. No, I'm kind of evenly distributing the ink over that, and I'm coming back and forth. And this will help leave any sort of streaks or anything like that. And then we've got a little bit more white right here. Okay, that's pretty good. I might come back and just get this wet again. Just briefly go over it. I really like to keep my ink wet. Okay, let's go one color darker. So when I do the lightest, I like to have my light source in the upper right hand corner because I'm right-handed. But whenever I add a new color, I'm incrementally going darker and darker. I want to add it to kind of like a dark spot of where I know it's going to be the darkest. So I'm going to start kind of in this inner area of his shoulder where I don't think it's going to get as much light. And then down here, and we're going to keep going over and over into this. So we're going to get a little bit darker and a little bit wetter as we go. Bear with me. So I'm kind of just following the curvature of what I think it's going to look like. Right now we don't have much definition to this, so as we go along we'll start getting more shadows and depths and flavors, and it'll be more obvious what the final result is going to look like. So right now you kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. Let's see, this whole area is going to be pretty dark. So my whole light source is over here, so this whole bottom left part isn't really going to get much light. Okay, that's good for that. Now normally what I would recommend is coming back with your lightest marker and blending everything together. But since these two markers were pretty close in tone, I don't really think that's necessary, and I'm going to go ahead and step it up to the next darkest color. So again, I'm starting in a spot that I know is going to be dark, probably the darkest spot of any of the shell, And that just gives me a good reference. And it's just like a safe space to put that dark color. Because I know that no matter what, I'm either going to make it darker or I'm going to like that color. But I'm not starting in kind of like a medium, like, you know, medium tone space. So here, come back. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. Looking good already. And I think this whole area right here will be kind of like a darkish gray. And then maybe we have a little bit of light up on the shoulder. And then, okay, I'm going to go one more darker, starting in that dark spot. And with this last marker, whenever I do kind of my last dark marker, I usually do a pretty thin layer, like a really thin line, kind of right next to probably like a border line, for example. And that just gives it a little bit of contrast, so that those dark colors really stand out a lot. So I'm not going to give them a lot of real estate to work with, but what I am going to do is just put them in a spot where it really just complements everything else. So here, shadows are good. The more I've learned about coloring with markers, or even just art in general, is that contrast is good, and we really like contrast. And we want to have darks and lights and all that. Okay, so everything looks pretty good. I'm going to come back in with my lightest color, and I'm just going to blend it all together. Okay, that's where that wet ink comes in play. I can actually touch this, and it's still wet to the touch. This is going to help me blend everything together and just kind of bring it all together so it doesn't look so, you know, sliced up. This looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm just blending this all. This marker is lighter, so it's actually going to make everything a little bit lighter itself, because since that ink is still wet, I'm really just mixing it together. So I'm adding light ink into like a darker ink. If this ink were already dry, it'd be a totally different story. So I want to make sure that when I start doing a certain section, I'm all prepared. This is the blender marker, also known as an eraser, and it actually lightens up areas. So I'm going to add even more. We're going to get more contrast by lightening up certain areas of this, particularly by his left shoulder. And this will be nice and light. Maybe over here a little bit. Maybe a touch right here, and then let's give it to the hip bone as well. I think that looks pretty good for the starts. Alright, let's put away these guys, and let's do the blaster next. So the blaster, I selected a similar set of grays compared to this one, but it'll be a slightly different tone. So, as I said before, we're going to start with the lightest color, and I have these all laid out like so, and I'll go ahead and put these in order. I go from left to right. I go lightest to darkest, and then I'm just going to kind of work my way from the lightest colors to the darkest colors. And I'm going to keep kind of coming back. On that last one, I kind of just went lightest, second lightest, third lightest, fourth lightest, but normally I would go lightest, second lightest, lightest, second lightest, third lightest, lightest, second lightest, third lightest, fourth lightest. And I keep coming back to blend everything together. But these grays are pretty similar in color, so I don't really need to go back and blend as much as I would if I were doing like a red into an orange, for example. So here we're just going to do the blaster. I've grabbed my lightest color, so I know I'm safe, because everything is going to be darker than this color. This is the lightest it will ever be. Okay, we'll go ahead and do the blaster. Just getting it wet. I'm not going to go crazy getting it wet. And then I'm going to start working in these darker areas. So I think my light source is going to be in the upper right. So this will all be dark. This will be dark here. This whole thing will be darker, darker. Okay, that's good. I don't think there's a need to come back with my lightest marker since these colors are so similar together. But it's always a good option to have. I'm going to do kind of a phantom line here a little bit. Show that there's some dimension there even when there's not a black line to help me out. And I'm just gradually getting darker and darker and darker. What does this look like? That looks pretty good. I think a little bit of light will get through here. Maybe just a little bit. Let me come back in with that lightest color and blend this touch. Always keep your lightest marker nice and handy, because you will come back to it quite a bit. I always keep mine in the upper left. Alright, let's go with the next darkest color. And when I'm adding the dark colors, when I'm adding the next color, what I really like to do is come to the darkest spot that I think I'm going to have on the entire section and start there, because I know that even if the marker I choose is too dark, that's the darkest it's going to be, and that's going to be the spot where it's going to end up being darkest. And so if you make a mistake and you don't like that color, it's less likely going to have a big impact on the rest of your drawing. That looks pretty good. Let's try 50 here. So this one's got a little tint of blue to it. Kind of like a grayish, bluish. And right now I'm not 100% satisfied with this, so I'm going to go back in with the light marker and try to kind of lighten this area up. Since that ink is wet, I can still work it a bit. I'll come back down here, do all my lights. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's go to the next darkest color. And so right now, even though this marker is significantly darker, I think it's this one right here. Since that ink is so wet and it's kind of thick now, adding this extra dark marker, it isn't going to make as big of a difference as you might expect, just because you're kind of mixing in that ink with ink that's already there. So you're basically just diluting it. That looks good. Come in here. So again, going to the darkest spot. Okay, I think that's good for, alright, so we got some more dark here, more dark here, and then finally we'll end with this color dark. And I'm coming back up with this because I don't like how this faded. That's much better. And then here, I'm not a big fan of this. I'm going to go in with one of the lighter markers. Not the lightest one this time. But it's like my third lightest color. And then I'm just going to kind of blend everything together. I think that looks pretty good. We're going to make mistakes together, and I actually didn't really care for how that was blending, so I went ahead and made it lighter, and now I'm going to come back in with a darker marker, just right here. I'm going to just give it a second shot. We're making small changes. We're gonna make mistakes. It's just going to happen. I haven't. Sure, I made a practice sheet, but I didn't actually practice on it yet. I'm just going to kind of wing it, and we'll figure it out and fix it as we go. So when we draw these things, You know, there's a lot of steps and you're bound to make a mistake here or there. But the techniques of using the lighter ink first, getting the paper wet with the lightest ink, adding the darker colors into the darkest spot, those are all really safe techniques to, yeah, to having a good picture when you're all done and preventing mistakes. Okay, now I'm going to do this collar area. This shows up as kind of like a blackish color, so I'm going to go with N7. This is a Copic marker. I normally use a Hoo-Hoo, but I actually like the Copic grays a little bit more. And N7, there's like 4 layers. There's 4 more grays that are darker than this, but this one looks black enough in my opinion. And if you go with that real black, like, it's really dark. So at least with this one, it still appears to be black, but it's not dominating, and I can still see the outline from the coloring picture. So I typically don't go much darker than N7. And it looks like this area back here will be dark as well, but I'm going to go over that with a warm gray, because with a brownish grayish, so it matches the shell color. You know, I am realizing that when I did the shell, I forgot to do the nails. So I'm going to go back. Forgive me, please. I think I'm done with the blaster now, so I'm going to put away all these markers. And let's go ahead and grab my cool grays again. So I really just use these 4 markers. I'm going to use those same ones again. And this is, I like to keep my markers out and group together for this exact reason. Like, I usually forget to do something. Not always, but usually, you know, in the course of an entire drawing, I'll probably leave a little spot out, forget a nail, forget some little nook and cranny that's hiding in the background. So I just keep my markers out and present. And so if I need to go back and grab them, I know exactly where they are. I don't have to write down like which color is which. I just kind of have a group of markers together. And you know what? It works out pretty well for me. It's a good strategy. Okay, so starting with that lightest color, we'll go to the next darkest one. Starting in the darker area. Oh, this marker has seen better days. I'm going to see if I have another one of these. Hold on one second. CG20. And I do have another marker. Oh yeah, that's much better. So this one's not that much different from the previous color. So, you know, blending wise, it makes it a lot easier when the colors are more similar. Typically the gray colors are pretty similar together, but when you get into like normal colors, maybe not so much. Okay, so my light area is going to be in the upper right again. So I'm going to start in the lower left whenever I add this new color. I'm basically going to start in a darker area and work my way to the lighter areas. Alright, that's pretty good. Let's go CG30. So darker area. So starting on the bottom and working my way towards the light area. You know, these light colors are kind of difficult to do. Like, I know these are nails and we want them to look white, but you know, markers are tough with really light colors actually. You always end up kind of with these gray colors, but if I were to do a background, this whole area would end up looking a lot more white than it currently does. But yeah, so just working my way in here. That probably doesn't get very much light. Yeah, that doesn't get much light either, because it's beneath him. Maybe just a touch here. Maybe just a touch here. And then let's grab our darkest marker. And we're just going to come underneath. And I'm going to come back with a lighter color and kind of shade everything together. Not, oh my gosh. So I'm not super happy with what I see right now, but that's okay. It's all wet. We're going to end up coming back and blending it together, and it'll look a lot nicer. Wet ink is your friend. You can always come back and make changes as we go. You can always go darker. You can kind of go lighter. As long as that ink is wet on the paper, you can go a little bit lighter. We also have the blender marker, which helps quite a bit. It's also called an eraser, and it really does its job actually quite well. I was pleasantly surprised when I first started using it. And I didn't use it properly at first. Like, it's really good for adding a highlight area and getting a little bit more contrast. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to come back in with my original color and just kind of blend everything together. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. It just brings everything back together, right where I want it. And you can see, like, look at this before. Like, you got kind of these lines here, and I'm going to go over this, and we'll kind of blur those lines together and just bring all the colors together a little bit more. So we always start with the lightest color, and we usually end with the lightest color. Okay, that is pretty good for the nails. Let me put these away. Alright, let's do the shell. The shell is brown. Okay, so I've got my palette here. Now these ones aren't all gray. The ones on my right here, these are gray, but then these ones are kind of like a more brownish color. So I think what I'm going to do is start with my lightest color, which will be this gray wolf hair. That's what it's called. And I'm just going to get everything that's part of the shell. I'm just going to start there and get everything wet. I'm adapting my style as I go. Like, I don't have like a full set game plan of what everything is going to be and how it's all going to look like when it's all said and done. But it's always safe to start light and end dark. Getting a lot of ink on this paper. This marker is using a broad tip. This one only has a broad tip and a fine tip. I typically like the brush markers the most. I think they're the best for applying ink and for blending things together. But the broad side is pretty good too. It's more meant for pushing ink, which is kind of a way of aggressively fading things together, particularly if you're trying to put a light color back into a dark color. You can kind of push that dark color away a little bit, believe it or not, and it really does work. You just gotta have wet ink in order to do that. Once the ink dries, it's too late. You can't really go back. You can always go darker, but you can't go lighter. Oh yeah, I'm liking this brown. Since I like this color so much, I'm really going to put down a good layer. So anything that I mix into it is going to stick around. It's going to stay closer to this true color, this brown. I don't always do like my base color first. Sometimes I even go a color lighter than my base color to start, because it's always safer to start dark, or start light and finish dark. Okay, let me add in some of this cocoa brown. So I'm going to come to the spot that I know is going to be darkest, which is right here. And actually, I don't even know if I like this. You know what? I'm going to skip off on this color for now. So this is a really good example of me using a color that I'm not sure if I actually want to use. I put it in the darkest spot because I know that this is going to end up being covered up by a much darker color. So I'm not even worried about it. Yeah, I made a mistake, but who cares? I was smart about it. Okay, let's use this gray right here. So I'm going to come to a dark spot. Oh yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect. Okay, and we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of briefly go over all where the shadow is going to be. We're just kind of slowly molding and forming this thing. Like, think of it like Play-Doh almost, and we're just kind of mold it, and gradually we're going to end up with that shape that we want. Like if you're doing, like, I don't know, if you're doing claymation and you're doing Gumby, for example, you're probably not going to start all the details in, like, his hand and then just have a lump of clay for everything else. Now, you're probably going to gradually work your way into that hand. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just kind of gradually working into all the shadows and everything. So that's pretty good. I'm going to come back in with my light color and just blend everything together. That looks pretty good. Alright, let's go with that next dark brown. Or not brown, gray. Warm gray. Starting in the dark area. And then I'm going to do kind of like an outline, like a fine edge. Okay, I like that. Let's give it a little bit more thickness. Okay, that's good. And this should all kind of fade together towards the end. That might have been a little bit thick right there. Alright, I'm going to come in with that second marker that I used and kind of re-blur this and just fade this together a little bit better. Every time I put down ink, the paper gets a little bit wetter, and I like wet. Wet is good. It gives the more layers of ink oh shoot, you know what? I did not mean to just do that. That was my second lightest. I meant to keep my lightest right here. So since I've got the ink is so wet, I'm going to use the pushing end, the broad tip, and I'm going to kind of push away some of that ink out of the way. That looks pretty good. The other thing I can do is I can come in with a blender, and this will give me some highlights, which we can do since we're here. I'll add a highlight here. Now this ink has already started to dry a little bit, but still pretty satisfied. I think we got a light spot right here maybe, and then maybe a light spot, a tiny bit of one right here. We can always come back over this white area. So let me come back in with, let me finish where I was before. Here's that second lightest color, and I'm blending. I'm blending that third lightest color, or second darkest marker, whatever you want to call it. Oh yeah, that looks good. Okay, and now with the darkest marker. So again, I'm always starting with my darkest spot. Now this one's really, really, really dark. Okay, I don't know why it jumps up so much, but it just kind of does. So what I might do is very, very thin. Yeah, this almost looks black. Very, very thin. Come underneath it. Okay, very, very thin. It almost looks like I'm just thickening up the lines, but I'm not. And we're going to come back in and blend this a little bit better. So let me come in with the previous marker. and I'm just going to kind of go over this edge a little bit. I'm just making it so that I'm not making it super thick. I'm just making it so that edge isn't as sharp. Kind of blending that edge in a little bit. But this is a really dark marker, and like if you're mixing markers together and they're very, very different, you want to make sure that that paper is nice and wet. If the colors are close, it's easier to blend and you don't need to have as much ink on the paper. But in the case of this dark gray, I want to have wet paper. Come back in here with my lightest color. It never really hurts to add a little bit more color. And you can always come up with this light one. You're always blending things together. Things don't always dry the way you want them to. And I would say that that is pretty good for the shell. Okay. Put these markers away. And you know what? Let's actually go in and add a highlight. Just all I'm doing is just grabbing my blender marker and just kind of going over the highlight area. It lightens up that ink. As long as that ink is wet, key thing, as long as that ink is wet, then you're good. Okay, so now I got some light spots. Alright, let's put these markers away and let's do the belly and the chin area. So this is the one that I grabbed, this marker here, but I don't think I'm going to use this. I think I'm going to go for WG 150. So I think these will be my primary colors right here. So we'll go ahead and get everything wet. I just want to double check my reference drawing to make sure. So these are going to be blue. So this is his skin, this is blue, and then this is his belly, and this is going to be this brownish color. But I'll tell you something that happens a lot. So I've had this collection of markers for a while. I think it's like 300. I probably have like 400 or 500 different markers. And they're all hoo-hoo. But the problem is, like, not all markers are created equally. Like some markers you just use a lot more than other ones. Like you might find like a really nice sky blue, for example. This one's already running out of ink. And you might use that sky blue. You might use it all up in your first like 5 or 6 drawings. And then there might be like a really dark purple you never even touch at all. And so you end up having to buy replacement sets, and then you go through the blue again, and then you're left with another of these purples that you never used. And so when you look at my collection over the years, I probably have, you know, there's one purple marker that I never use, but it comes in every set. I probably have like 4 or 5 of them. But some colors, like this one, it's really good for skin, it's good for dirt, it's good for a lot of things. And you tend to use it a little bit quicker. And then you run out, and then you have to replace the set. Alright, I'm going to see if I have another one of these. Hold on tight. I do. Alright, oh yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, so we at least got one layer down. Right now I'm just nice, even, thin layer. Doesn't have to be too thick, because I know those next markers I'm going into are going to fade fairly well onto this one. But still, I just want it to be nice and wet. Wet paper is better than dry paper, as they say, as I say. There we go. Yeah, these light markers, since I really encourage going back and blending with the light markers and starting with the light markers, ending with the light markers. You end up going through the light markers quite a bit quicker than the dark markers. And it's always frustrating when you start something and you start running out of ink and you're not sure, oh, is my marker going to make it? I don't know. I don't know. But this marker is pretty fresh that I have here, so I think I'm in good shape for this one. And if you do run out of ink, you can always get creative and mix colors together, or use a new color entirely. Oh yeah, that looks good. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with my next darkest gray, and I'm going to start in the spot that I know is going to be really dark. So let's go underneath his arm right here. Yeah?
Connor, I have these rings that I had for the dryer. They're hard.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know where they are.
You don't have anything similar to that.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. Okay, so I'm going to use this gray right here. And actually, I mean, it does look a little bit different. I mean, maybe it's not the best color for me right now. But at least let's just go ahead and get it started. So, do the belly. And we're just slowly adding shadows. I'm not going for the Hail Mary. I'm not going for the big dark shadow right away. I'm working my way into it. I'm kind of slowly building up to my shadows. And one of the reasons why is because, like, I don't even know if I like this color that I'm putting on right now. Like, I almost guarantee, like, I'm probably going to come back with that first color and try to bring it all together a little bit. In fact, I mean, I know I'm going to do that eventually. Maybe I'll do 2 layers. Maybe I'll do this one and the next one after that. Okay, let's try this. And then let's go ahead and make this a little bit dark. Yeah, that's really dark. Shoot. You know, I didn't really practice what I preach there because I didn't start in the darkest area, but you know what? That's okay. I don't really like doing a straight line. I kind of like to squiggle my hand a little bit. And I think that just gives it a better look, like when you blend it, when you come back later and blend it all together. You want to avoid having lines. Lines just are not natural, okay? Nothing with lines, nothing really in nature really occurs with perfectly straight lines, but you might have it with these little blurs and stuff. So let me come back in with 150, the original color, and let me try blending it all together. I can still save this. I can still save it. I know it's not great right now, but I can save it. But it's always safe, pretty much always safe coming in with that lightest color and blending everything together. That's usually a safe bet. It'll also buy you time as far as ink drying goes. So just by putting down this extra layer, I've already bought myself a few extra minutes. And it's not bad, but I'm going to take another look at my palette. I've got white ink, yes I know, but I actually have a pretty thick layer down. And let's take a look at this, and let's see if there's a lighter color I can do that will kind of brighten up. Because it just feels kind of dark. I wonder if I can go over this with W1. Let's see what happens. I'm going to grab one of these Copic markers, and I'm going to go over, well, let's choose right here. Let's see what that looks like. Well, that's pretty good. So I'm basically just doing a lighter color and trying to buy myself, try to add a little more contrast by going lighter instead of going darker. Not guaranteed to work, but not a bad idea. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's get some. It's just a little bit lighter, but it's a slightly noticeable amount. All right, I'm gonna put this marker away. I wonder if... Okay, so I got this WG-140, and I wonder what this might look like. So I'm gonna just try a small section. If I add this, is it gonna give me the kind of color that I want? Because right now I'm just not, it just feels kind of brown to me. Oh, I think this color is actually good for me. Okay. And right now I've got a lot of ink down on the paper, so adding this, especially because it's a lighter color, isn't going to change it that much. So I might have to do more than a few layers. Also keep in mind this is the broad end, and it's not the best for applying a ton of ink. It's good for pushing ink. So you just have to kind of go over it maybe more than once. Oh yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And spot up here. I think that's pretty good. Alright, I think all we have left now is the skin, the blue skin. I think I'm just going to leave the eyeball white. I don't always do that. Or tell you what, I'm going to come in with my lightest gray, and I'm just going to kind of give him some outline to his eyes right here. Just the tiniest amount. And then I might come in with the blender and blend that all away. Very subtle, very, very subtle. But it only takes us a second, and it actually adds something to the drawing, so I like doing it. Okay, let's do the skin tones, which in this case is all blue. And yeah, sometimes the paper warps a little bit when it gets really wet. If you take a look at the back side, you can see how much I went through. As far as the paper thicknesses go, I actually don't know what this paper is. I think it's probably between 40 and 60 pounds. I don't recommend using printer paper, which is 20 pound. The nice thing about printer paper is it doesn't use as much ink because the ink doesn't have to go through as much, but the ink will dry quicker and it's harder to blend. So I like the kind of like this medium paper. Okay, so I'm just gonna go with my two grays. I think if I need to come back, I'll come with these. But since everything else is pretty much gray, with maybe like one little exception, I think this will look good as a gray color too. Now I've only got two of these, and I'm actually going to see if I can find a third, because when I color, I like to have at least three. For an area this big, I want to have 3 or 4 different markers, not just 2. That'll give me a lot more contrast. So right now I picked MG 30, 60. Let's grab 100. Alright, I grabbed a couple colors here. Let's go ahead and make my palette. So start with MG 30 here. Oh yeah, that's nice. So when I'm going from this to this, that's a big step in color. So I just want to make sure that I have a lot of ink on the paper, and that will allow me to blend it a little bit better. And that blue might be a little bit too dark. I think this blue is probably too dark. I'm going to set these ones to the side, and I'm just going to work with those first 3 colors. So as usual, just going to get everything wet with the lightest color. Oh, this marker might be running out of ink too. All right, hold on one second. Actually, there's another color right here. Let's actually start with this one. This one's even lighter. I forgot this color even existed. Slightly lighter. But let's start with this one. We're gonna probably end up having everything being the color I started with. But like I said, I like to get everything wet. And it's just, this becomes my blending marker. Really good for blending. Oh, this marker's kind of dry too. Whatever, I'm just going to use as much of it as I can. I really need to replace my marker set soon. I mean, 90% of the markers still have ink in them, probably 95%, but just not all that much ink. Like right now, the brush tip is kind of damaged and ink's just not really flowing. So I'm basically just gonna empty out this marker as much as I can, but I'm not gonna try to get every single drop because that would take forever, and if I were to get every single drop, the ink would dry on me, and that would be bad because we know what happens when ink dries on you. It becomes permanent. I still don't know if I'm going to do a background on this or not. And actually, sometimes it's nice to keep these kind of faded markers away instead of just throwing them away. Like something like this is actually really good for like a cloud, for example. Like if I'm doing kind of like a spotchy cloud, it can end up looking real nice. Oh yeah, I like this color. I might actually stick with this color a little bit more than I thought I was going to. But like I said, we can always go darker. That's why we always start light. We're basically just giving ourselves room for error. Right? Like, I'm gonna mess up. I have messed up on this. There have been times where I picked the wrong color. Like, I picked the wrong color in this area right here, but you can't tell anymore because I went over with a darker color. That's fine. I just know how to manage my risks. I know what will pay off, what won't. Alright, this marker has seen better days. MG20. Fortunately, I have another one right here. Not guaranteed to have more ink because I kind of mix and match them a bunch and move markers around. But it seems to be flowing pretty well. Not amazing, but it's definitely fresher than the other marker. Keeping everything nice and wet, nice, evenly distributed, not spotty in certain areas and dry in others. Going back and forth, back and forth. Gosh, this marker's getting there too. Might have to retire this marker after this drawing as well. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, let's go to MG30 now. So I'm going to start in a spot that I know is going to be dark. We'll go underneath his foot here. Okay. Now this is what I originally wanted as my base color, so this will dominate a lot of the space. I will cover a lot of the blue area with this marker. The ink that was there before is really just helping me blend everything together, keep it all wet. But right now I got my light source over here, so this right foot is going to be pretty dark. So I'm just going over the whole thing with this second lightest color. Same thing with this left hand or his right hand. Not going to be much contrast yet. See, I got to be careful because I'm kind of pulling in some of this gray over here. So if I'm going to cover, I just got to be careful not to mix the markers too much. Okay, so his face, let's see, let's start with the darker area. So underneath his lip. Ah, this marker, MG30. I think I have another one right here, actually. Oh yeah, here we go. nostrils. Let's go underneath the eye. On the inside of the ear. See, I just like to start in the areas that I know are going to be shadowy. So, bring it up over here. I don't know. Maybe that was a mistake right there. I'll try to fix that later. Not too much later before it dries, but later. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit right here. Okay. Yeah, that looks nice. All right, let's go back and try to save this face. MG20, the original color. So this is the first color I was using. Just gonna try to blend all this together a little bit, get rid of that line. Now the ink dries lighter than it is when it's wet. So you don't always know what the final result's gonna look like. I mean, you'll be able to tell what's gonna be lighter and darker for the most part. Comparing wet ink to wet ink and dry ink to dry ink. But you can't exactly compare wet ink to dry ink. Oh, geez, I'm kind of butchering this. Yeah, it's getting real dark over here, but, you know, it kind of looks shadowy. I kind of like that, actually. Gives it a little bit of a rougher texture. Oh my gosh, this marker is so dead. Alright, let's come in with MG60. So that's going to be my original, it's going to be the third one here. And let's do spot I know is going to be dark. It's going to be underneath this eye. Underneath the lip. And up here a little bit. Maybe underneath this nostril a little bit. This nostril. Okay, we'll come underneath this arm here. Just try to add a little bit. So I'm definitely starting, I'm always starting in the spots that I know are going to be darkest. And kind of gradually working my way to a lighter spot. Yeah, that looks pretty good. This right arm I kind of screwed up a little bit, but it's okay. That looks pretty good. Alright, gonna come back in with MG30 and try to blend all this together. Gotta act fast while it's wet, because the difference is so big. You know, I go pretty quickly, and I kind of do all the blue at once, and I do all this color at once, and all that color at once. But you don't have to. Like, if it's like a really large area, you can break it into different sections. I just don't like to do that because I think it slows me down. And also, you kind of have to remember the steps and the order in which that you put everything down if you want it to be consistent, which is important. Let's go in with MG30 again, my really light color that is drying up on me. Oh, it's not amazing, but it's not bad. Oh, I'm going to try the other end of this marker. Right now I'm really pushing. I'm trying to line up certain areas of this hand, and then, oh, you know what? This is MG20, so I'm good. This is my lightest color. So I'm safe with my lightest color. I'm really safe to put it just about anywhere. Yeah, I think... Oh my gosh, there's a tail. Ha! We completely missed the tail. I was just about to call it done, but nope. The tail should be pretty simple and straightforward. We'll get this ink wet. We'll go to my second lightest color, start in a darker area, and work our way towards the light. And then grab the next darkest one. And I think that is pretty good. So here's Blastoise. You know, it turned out pretty well. I think the shading looks pretty good. Yeah, there's some spots that I'm not too happy of, and I know the white turns into this grayish color that's kind of hard to get rid of. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with this. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or concerns in the comments section. I know it's a new channel, so but I'll be able to address any of your issues or concerns and maybe be able to help you out.